let's talk about something that I'm sure every single one of you guys tuning into this video wants to know about, and that is the pay. What's up, guys? The Erudite Trucker here, back with another video. And as you could read in the title, this video is going to be my 2-year review of TMC Transportation. Now, my intentions for this video are, one, to discuss my personal experience over the last 2.5 years that I've been here, and secondly would be to give insight as to what new drivers could expect if they decide to come to the company. Now, when I say new drivers, that could be somebody that's brand new to trucking and you're coming to TMC to go through their CDL training and get your license. Or you could be a driver that's already got some experience under their belt and you're deciding to come over to TMC and advance your career that way. Now, I know that there are other drivers out there that have, their 6-month review videos or year review videos, and I don't after this time. But fun fact about that is that I actually was recording videos back then. I was more so deciding whether or not I wanted to record videos, because I had some stuff on my phone, when I was going through the training facility, but I just wasn't committed to doing any YouTube videos back then, so I never uploaded anything, and I forgot about it for like 1.5 years until I decided to come up to this point and start making videos for you guys this year. Better late than never. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to it, and I want to start at the beginning. And like I said, this is all going to be tailored to my personal experience with TMC. Your personal experience, if you decide to come over here, may vary slightly from mine. If TMC modifies their procedures in the future, if they change things slightly, or I don't know, they might not, because TMC is pretty militant with their procedures there. So I couldn't really see things changing all that much, but take that with a grain of salt, like I said. So moving on, I'll start off with like the hiring process, what you can expect when you first apply to TMC, and it's pretty easy. I just filled out their online application, and since it doesn't take very long. And when I did that, they literally, a recruiter called me back the next day, and they just asked, some general feeder questions, like what's your experience level, what's your interest, and things like that. And just seeing basically how soon I would be ready to come out to the training facility, which for me was the headquarters in Des Moines, Iowa, how soon I would be ready to come out there. And when you do that, I had to carpool there. I was carpooling actually with another driver, and he came to pick me up at midnight. He drove from West Virginia, got to my house, picked me up at midnight, and we had a 9-hour drive to get to Des Moines, Iowa for the next morning. But when TMC does that, they're gonna pick up, or they're gonna pay for the rental car, and then they're just gonna have you and however many other guys are riding along that same lane of travel all carpool together. So when I came to TMC, it was just me and one other guy. So what we did, we just took shifts driving, I suggested. So like I drove for 2 hours, and I would stop, he would take over, he would drive for 2 hours, and then we just repeated that process until we got to Des Moines, Iowa. And I did that so that we could stay fresh, because we were driving in the middle of the night, and that's normally a time when I would be in bed fast asleep. So that way we just kept each other fresh, and nobody got sleepy. We didn't have to worry about anybody, passing out all along the drive. Plus, it was February when I came to TMC, so it was heavily snowing that night when we left. As a matter of fact, somebody almost crashed into us on the way there, because it was very, very thick snow. And the other guy that was with me, he was actually driving, and fortunately able to swerve away, because the other person in the lane next to us spun out and almost rammed into the side where I was sitting. But fortunately, that didn't happen. So back onto the process there. We got to the terminal in Des Moines, Iowa, and actually they have a hotel there, and they'll put you in a hotel room with another person that's there training, or like another driver that's there for the night. But either way, you're not going to be in a room by yourself. So you'll do the training, which there's a lot that goes along with that. My training was a little bit different than what the standard training would be for a new guy, because I was an experienced driver. I'd already had my CDL for, I believe, 2 years, but I was new to flatbedding in a Class A vehicle. So my training was expedited. My first week was in classroom training, where you're taking all your computer tests and you're watching the video instruction that they have for you. If you pass all of that, then they would put you out with your trainer. And for me, since I was already an experienced driver, I was out with my trainer for 2 weeks. But I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. When you get to TMC for your first day, that's when they're gonna have you take your DOT physical, you're gonna take your drug test, and you're gonna do your TMC fitness tests. Now, if you fail any of those things, I do believe it's highly likely that they're gonna send you home. And if that happens, then they are going to purchase a Greyhound ticket that's going to ship you back to where you came from. I think that you can also, fly back home, but you're going to be paying for it. TMC is only going to pay for the Greyhound ticket. Any other means of transporting yourself back to your home is going to be on you financially. The DOT test, standard stuff, you have to touch your toes. I mean, I would say it's not very different from any like routine annual physical that you would do with your personal physician, your general practitioner. So you can pass that, a vision test, a hearing test, blood pressure, and the TMC fitness test. That's going to be, well, at least at the time that I did it, they're going to show you the proper procedure for picking up your tarps so that you don't injure yourself. They're going to show you the proper procedure for climbing up onto a trailer deck so that you don't fall off and hurt yourself, or you dramatically reduce the risk of that happening. You're going to have to load a tarp onto a trailer and then put it up on top of something the same way that you would have to if you were actually about to tarp a load. And you're going to have to follow the procedure that the instructor gives to you. Now, if you aren't able to pick up the tarp, or you're not strong enough to lift it up, I think that is also grounds for them to send you home if they think you're going to be unfit, or you're going to be unable to successfully do the job once you're out there on your own. Next thing, if you pass all of those tests, then you'll be moving on to the classroom portion. Like I said, they do all that stuff for you first, because there's no point in them putting you through, the class and the training and all that stuff that comes along next if you don't pass all of that stuff first. So they put that very first thing in the morning, the next day, which is going to be a Monday. So you get there on Sunday, and that Monday is when you go through all those tests that I was telling you about. And you need to pass them, and they're not difficult. And I've had a guy in the past reach out to me and ask me, how frequently does TMC drug test you after you've been hired? If you ask that question, you've already got a problem. Because I'll tell you, if you are going to be engaging in any kind of recreational substances, CDL driving is not for you. You need to give all that stuff up. I would encourage you to give up drinking. Definitely no recreational substances, because by definition, the tests are random. So if you have anything rolling around in your system, don't even do it. Don't even do it. Moving on. Okay, now moving on. Like, once you've passed those tests and you've completed the classroom training, which is, in my opinion, not very difficult. If you know how to read and you pay attention to the videos that you are watching, you can easily pass the tests. And a lot of the questions that they ask you are common knowledge. If you're reading the questions that they give to you, you'll be able to answer the questions correctly. And in my experience, some of the questions on there were worded more so for comprehension, and also to make sure that you are actually paying attention to what you're reading, not just flying through the questions. It's my understanding that they want to make sure that you're properly reading the words that are in front of you on whatever paperwork you have, because it's going to be important when you get out there in your own truck that you're properly reading your BOLs, They want to make sure, does your load number match what's on the BOL? Does it match what was on your load screen when you got dispatched? Are you reading to make sure that you are about to drive to the correct city and state? Are you counting the quantities of the say like you have lumber on your truck? Are you counting the bundles? Are the bundles that are on your truck accurate with what's listed on your BOL paperwork? Are you picking up the right thing? Because drivers have made that mistake before. You know, guys driving to the wrong state because there's a city with the same name in multiple states, and they're just reading one thing and driving to a completely incorrect place. They cannot have that happen. That costs the company all kinds of money in wasted fuel and reputation. You know, telling your customer that your driver took the load to a completely different state than where it's supposed to go. It's very embarrassing for the company and for the driver, and you know that could cost you your job doing something like that. At the very least, it's going to cost you a lot of money because you're not going to get paid for moving that load. They'll probably make you sit until they find another customer somewhere else that wants to buy that freight since it's so far away. Whatever the consequence is, it's not going to be positive for you as the driver. So moving on, once you are good to go on your classroom training, like I said, I'm going by my experience. So once I was done with the classroom training, I got sent straight back home until the end of the week. That's when they were going to go ahead and put me with my trainer. And they're going to try to find a trainer that lives close to where you live. For me, I met up with my trainer on a Sunday, which is right before he was about to leave to get his week started. And from there, you're going to be off to the races. You're going to be driving the majority of the time when you're with your trainer. Most likely you're going to be driving all day and driving some into the night. And my trainer would take over at nighttime while I was in the bunk sleeping. And he would drive like all night into the morning, or he would drive all night to finish the route off. And then, you know, I would pick up driving again in the morning. Their responsibility is going to be to watch you and instruct you to make sure you're picking things up at the proper pace, and that you're not making any like egregious, you know, violations or doing anything dangerous while you're under their supervision. So I was out with my trainer for 2 weeks because my trainer had to get service while I was with him. And that's another thing. If you go out with your trainer, you're going to be out for however long your trainer chooses to be out. So if your trainer goes home every weekend, then you'll be out with your trainer from Sunday to Friday when they get home. But if you're like someone in my case, your trainer wants to be out for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you're going to be out that whole time until they decide to go home. And so pack accordingly once you go back home. Your trainer will most likely call you like a day before you're supposed to meet up with him, and he'll give you the rundown of, you know, what you should bring with you, because they already know how this goes. They'll let you know what you should bring with you, what you should expect, and they'll prep you so that you're not out there lacking for a whole lot of things once you're out there on the road and are unable to go home right away. Once you are done on the road with your trainer is going to be in touch with like the TMC training department, I believe, and they're going to let them know basically if they think you're good enough to be a driver for TMC or not, or if you have any outstanding issues, if you need more time to be trained, or if you know you're a lost cause and TMC should not hire you. And you'll find out what the case is going to be. And if you pass like I did, you'll go back to one of the headquarters. Well, actually not one of the headquarters, there is only one. You'll go back to a TMC facility and you'll test out. And for me, I just had to do I believe it was what was it? I can't remember if it was either a 90 or a 45 degree backing. I do believe that was it. Yeah, that was it. I don't think I had to do any other maneuvers. I didn't have to do another road test. I did a road test the first time when I first got to the facility at the end of the classroom portion. That's pretty much it. You know, they put me in my own truck after that, if I'm remembering everything correctly. Okay, that's pretty much it as far as like what you can expect when you first get to TMC, and when you go through the training process, and if you get hired or not. Overall, I'd say that was very easy for me. I didn't have any monster issues or anything that I really disliked when that was going on. It was pretty smooth. So I'll move on to the pros and the cons of being a driver with TMC. I'll let you guys make your decision as to whether or not you think those things will be worth it for you if you want to make a move over to this company. I'll start with the pros. Okay, first thing is that, in my opinion, TMC has one of the best flatbed training programs that there is in the industry. I mean, I think it's awesome. It's been great. It's very, very precise. You get to drive a Peterbilt 579, which is a really nice truck. I do believe that at this point in time, TMC has been moving all of their trucks over to automatics. I don't think that there are any manuals left in the fleet for the line haul guys. It might be different for like dedicated guys or specialized guys, but the line haul guys, the vast majority, if not all the trucks, are automatics now. So if you have an automatic restriction on your license, you're good to go. I don't. I can drive manual or automatic, whatever. I actually drove a manual when I first started. That was what my first truck was. But every truck that I've had after that first one has been an automatic. TMC's equipment is all very well maintained. They are very, very strict about the upkeep on their trucks, whether that's getting them washed or you detailing them when you come in for routine maintenance. Everything is always in very, very good shape, and they're very quick about repairing things. If you have some kind of breakdown, you're not going to be just stuck for days waiting to get your truck back in order. You can also have your home time just about anywhere. I don't live in the same state that I did when I first started working with TMC, so a lot of my family members and friends are in another state. But what I do if I want to go back to my hometown, I just let my fleet manager know at the beginning of the week, hey, have my home time set here. I give them the address, city and state, and they make it happen. Now, keep that within a certain bounds though. Don't like live in like Maine and then tell your fleet manager on Monday that you want to have your home time in Sacramento, California. That's not gonna happen. That's not gonna happen. It can't be super far away. Like the distance that I have is like an 8-hour difference from where I live to back to my hometown. So you can get there in a day, literally in a day, less than a day, you know, like, so just think about it like that. You know, if you want to go somewhere farther than like that, it's probably gonna be like a process. You know, maybe it'll take like 2 weeks for them to steadily work you out there, because otherwise you'd have to have a load that just shoots you straight across, and that kind of stuff is like few and far between for something that's like a super significant distance like that. Another perk is that you will travel all over the continental US. At this point in time, 2.5 years in, I have been to every state in the lower continental US except for Rhode Island, North Dakota, Montana, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington State. So pretty much the Pacific Northwest, and then this one little tiny bit of the East Coast that I don't know if they ever get anything. Because I've driven past it and around it a whole bunch of times, but never actually into it to deliver or pick anything up. Also, there is a lot of available freight. In my whole time here, I've never had a very long period of time where I do not have freight to pick up. So at the longest I've had, maybe just like I've sat around for like a few hours. I think the longest I ever sat around was like 4 hours waiting to get a load. And I had a subscriber reach out to me saying that he had spent a whole week and he only got one load. He worked for a different company and he was asking me about TMC, and I was telling him, like, that's never happened to me. Never, never, never. Now, there have been days occasionally where I have not gotten a load, and that's under a circumstance like I get unloaded like later on in the afternoon. Like if I get unloaded like 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, you know, the day's been long, you know, stuff's going on. So I normally try to deliver as early as possible. But if you get empty really late in the day, all of the freight might already be picked over. So in that case, I always have a pre-plan for a pickup the next day. So you're not just sitting out there in limbo with nothing to pick up. That's never happened to me, which is very, very important, because I'm not out here to just be sitting around in the truck without making any money. Another thing that I think is a positive about TMC is that assistance is always just one call away. So whether you are needing to reach out to your fleet manager to ask them questions about a load that you have to pick up. I mean, I've had times where my GPS stopped working and I was like up in Vermont and I knew nothing about the area. It was my very first time being up there. I couldn't figure it out on the map exactly where I was, because I was like off in like a rural area. I called my fleet manager, and the trucks all have GPSs in them. And I'm like, how do I get out of here? Because I needed to get back to the highway. And he gave me directions. He sent me in an email on my Trimble and led me right out of there. And I'm telling you, that was awesome. There's that, or you can call the safety department if you have questions about load securement, or you can call the logs lady if you need to figure out how to manage your clock, or if you have questions about how to run a split log, which I highly suggest you don't try to wing it and figure that out on your own, because you can severely mess your clock up doing that. There's that, and even after hours, they have the night dispatch crew, which is not going to be as fine detailed as like your daytime dispatcher, but they'll be able to get you out of some situations where they can guide you around a little bit. Like for me, there was one time where I was at a shipper, like my first year with TMC, and it had been a long day, and I was like close to running out of hours. I got to a shipper, I think it was, actually I can't remember which one it was, but I got into a shipper and they said that they didn't have parking at the shipper. It was a place I was getting loaded out of. And I called night dispatch when I saw the writing on the walls, looking at my clock, and I said I only had like an hour left. And I'm like, even if I get done getting loaded out of here, there's no place for me to park that I would be able to make it to within the amount of time that I have left. The night dispatch person that I was speaking to called the manager for the place I was picking up from, and it was like, what time? It was like 7 p.m. They called them and asked the manager, like for a special favor, like could our guy just park there overnight? He's gonna run out of hours, and they approved it, and so that helped me out a lot. I didn't have to go into worrying about a clock violation because of that. So like I said, there's help 24/7. Well, maybe not on the holidays, but that'll be when like the drivers are all going to be sitting at home anyway. But anytime I've needed assistance from somebody, I've always been able to contact somebody to help me get along. So that's very important. There's a lot of really good resources that TMC offers, and like I mentioned a little bit earlier, when it comes to load securement, you can call the safety managers and you can send them a picture of the load that you're picking up, ask them whatever question it is you have about the load, and they can tell you how to properly and safely secure it, which is very important. It has people's lives at stake once you're driving out on the road, not just your own. In addition to the safety managers, you can go into the TMC app once you're an employee, and they have the media library that has how-to guides for securing various types of loads, and even this employee guidebook right here, which I got when I first came into training, and I've kept this thing ever since. I'll keep this even if I leave TMC and I'm working for another flatbed hauler somewhere else, or if I go out on my own as an owner-operator, because the information in here, man, is fantastic. How to secure loads, working load limits for chains, how many pieces of securement need to be on, a specific item depending on how much it weighs. I mean, this thing is invaluable. I mean, I protect this thing, and I will never, ever throw it away, the information that I have in there. With TMC, if you value your home time, this is a good place for you to be. TMC does not force you to stay out any longer than a week. It's not gonna be like some other companies where you have to stay out on the road for 11 days or for 18 days before you come home. With TMC, you can go home every single Friday if you want to. Now, you can stay out as long as you want to as well. They can definitely do that for you. So you're not forced to, basically spend almost a month or half a month out on the road if you do not want to go out there and get all that money, which, like I said, they can definitely make that happen for you if you want to stay out there and get it. I do that quite a bit. And the most important pro about TMC that I've experienced, I have never had to run around and chase anybody for any money that I was owed, okay? I've never had my check come up short per the recording of this video. I don't want to jinx myself, but I've never had my checks come up short and like say, hey, I should have been making XYZ on this load, because I write everything down. Like when they send me that information on my load screen, I write everything down in my TMC revenue book here. I know they have an app for that as well, but I like going old school and using the book because I can keep these with me. I've kept every single revenue book since I started working with TMC, writing these down. I have a stack of them at home. That way I can always reference these. and see what I'm doing. And when you get paid, TMC on your check stub, you can check it out on the TMC app, and you can probably look at it on their company website as well once you log in. But they will give you an itemized list for each delivery that you've done, what it was supposed to pay, if the load paid bounce miles, if it paid extra stop miles, if it had TARP pay. It lists all of that itemized. And all of that same information that I write down in my revenue book, there's a section for all of those things in there. So I can cross-reference that and make sure that I'm getting paid what I'm supposed to be getting paid. And to this date, I've never had a problem with that. So that is the most important thing, because like I said, I don't work for free, I don't work for cheap, and I do not let people short me what's supposed to be mine. So that's a huge positive and a significant portion of why I've stayed with TMC, because I don't have anybody messing around with my checks. Let's move on to the negatives, or maybe, well, yeah, I'll call them negatives because they're not all positive. But TMC, especially if you will come over as an experienced driver like I did, you're gonna have an expedited process as an experienced driver. You're not gonna learn everything there is to know in the time that you're out there with your trainer. Now for me, I had just 2 weeks. I think new guys get 4 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, out with the trainer. But even in that amount of time, there's such a huge variety of commodities that TMC picks up. You know, various types of lumber, steel coils, aluminum, shingles. There's so many things that have different names. I do not remember them all, but different cuts of steel. There's no point even naming all this stuff. It's a lot of stuff, way more stuff than you will likely experience when you're out there with your trainer. And even with that, you're with your trainer, you're only getting to do it, you know, a few times. And plus things are different when you're out there by yourself, having to figure it out without somebody standing over your shoulder and instructing you or helping you through it. You'll learn that stuff as you go. For me, it was a trial by fire, because like I said, I only had 2 weeks out there with my trainer, and then I was out there in my own truck by myself. But that's when you can bounce that back to that portion I was saying, you know, you can call, there's always somebody you can call. You can talk to the safety managers, and like I said, you take the picture, let them know, hey, I don't know how to secure this. They'll walk you through it. Problem solved. Next thing would be you're not allowed to have pets in your truck. And for me, I wouldn't consider that a negative, but I know there are some people that like to have company when they're driving down the road. But TMC does not let you have pets of any sort unless you have maybe like a special circumstance or something, you know, a medical issue or something like that. I believe I've seen a video where somebody used to work for the company and they had a dog, but they had some kind of medical permit for that. But he's the only person I've seen that had that. There's also the strict cleaning requirements, whereas TMC, you need to have your truck washed at least once every 2 weeks, which is very easy to do. When you come in to get your truck serviced for routine maintenance, you have to detail the inside of the truck, scrub it down, clean it off, and I know a lot of people will be annoyed by that. For me, it's not that bad, because, you know, that's the way that I maintain my personal vehicle at home. You know, I keep everything clean. I get the thing washed, so that's just the way of the world for me. It doesn't really bother me. Plus, you only have to do it once every few months, you know, detailing the inside of the truck. It's really not a hassle if you think about it like that. The next thing would be low TARP pay. For TMC, at the point of recording this video, you'll get paid $40 for a lumber tarp and $30 for a steel tarp or a smoke tarp. And I've seen other companies, you know, where they're getting like, you know, 80 or 100 bucks for that. So I would say that's a negative for me. Another thing that I would say would be a big gripe, just generally, is say you want to be out on the road running. And when I say running, that means like you're out on the road for multiple weeks. You know, you're staying out for, you know, 2 weeks plus, or if you're staying out for months by choice, you can be out for all that time. But when you decide to come back home, you're only going to get the standard, you know, 34-hour reset at home, unless you work something out with your fleet manager. Because I have heard of guys that have been out on the road for, you know, like 6 months, and I've talked to a couple of guys personally that have been out on the road for over a year, and they get a little bit of extra time than just the 34-hour reset. I'm positive. that's just because, you know, they've been gone for so long. So that's a case-by-case basis. But just in general, because I'll go out, you know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and I come back home and I'll have a load. I'll come back home on a Friday, and then I'll have a load that delivers on Monday. So, you know, like, you're at home just a little bit and you're right back at it. So like I said, that's the general rule of thumb way things go. You might be able to work out something with your fleet manager to be back home for a little bit longer if you've been out on the road for a longer stretch. But I've never desired to do that. But moving on, let's talk about something that I'm sure every single one of you guys tuning into this video wants to know about, and that is the pay. TMC will pay you in 2 different ways. You can either be paid cents per mile, or you can be paid a percentage of the load. Now, I have never been paid cents per mile while I'm with TMC, so I won't delve into that and how that works or how much the cent per mile is, because I've never done it. I've been percentage the entire time. And I do believe that TMC's percentage goes from 24% on the low end all the way up to 34% on the high end. Now, currently, I'm at 33%, and I've been at 33% for a very, very long time. And I usually, if I ever go down, it's just like by like 1%. Like, I'll go down to 32% if I haven't parked up enough during the month. It's very easy to rise up in the ranks and get to that upper echelon level, you know, that 30 plus, you know, 31 to 33%. Getting up to the max 34% takes time. You pretty much have to be at TMC long enough to have enough tenure points to add up on your snapshot and get you to that threshold. But 33% is very obtainable. Like I said, I've been at 33 for months and months and months and months. It's not difficult if you're doing what you need to do. And to give you guys a little bit of the specifics on what you would need to do to rise up in the pay percentage level, you would need to have your 13-week revenue, you know, up to a certain level. So I think generally you need to be making $40 to $4,500 to the truck per week, and that'll be good to cover your revenue earnings, your fuel economy. So of course, the less you idle your truck, the better. Having good shifting patterns, which is not as much of an issue because you're not manually shifting anymore. Managing the truck well, as far as like not speeding and then coming to a sudden stop, you know, and then having to pick up speed again, you know, stuff like that that burns more fuel. Keeping your out of route numbers low, which means like TMC will give you when you get your load dispatch, it'll tell you, you know, how many miles you have to drive for your bounce. So miles from where you are to where the shipper is without a load on your trailer. So how many miles that is, and then how many, like a certain amount of miles from the shipper to the destination. So like it'll be 2 sets of numbers added together and what your actuals are. So that the number that I gave you is their estimate, and then you're gonna have your actual. So what they think it's gonna take to get from A to B, and then on your level, what it actually does take. And you want to have those numbers be as close to each other as possible. So if you keep those numbers low, I believe under 10% is what they look for. If you keep it under 10% for your out of route mileage, that's very good. Your CSA score, so making sure you don't have any tickets, no violations, you're not getting dinged on like inspections if DOT pulls you over. You're not getting a bunch of speeding tickets, getting points on your license. You want to keep that number at 0. Keep it at 0. Don't even get one thing. Keep it at 0. The most crucial thing that I think is getting your park up points on Sunday. And with TMC, your park up points is when you get to your shipper, or not your shipper, I'm sorry, your consignee's destination, or within 30 miles of your consignee, no later than 9 p.m. on Sunday. And TMC gives you increasing numbers of points. I believe it's 4, because it's the whole month. Yeah, so 4 different times. And that's a very easy way to get your points, so you can steadily increase your total point count to get to the higher percentages. Oh, also, you want to get your endorsements. So TMC gives you points for having your passports for having your TWIC card and for having your hazmat endorsement. Of course, there's doubles and triples and tanker, which I have all my endorsements, but TMC doesn't do any doubles and triples or any tanker work at this point in time. And I'm pretty sure they won't because they're a flatbed company. But you get points for the first three things that I mentioned, so that's easy points. I mean, you don't even haul those types of loads very frequently. Now, if you have your TWIC card, getting into the ports, I'd say you use that more frequently than you will your hazmat. If you want to see a hazmat video, I'll put a link up. You can check mine out. I have another one that I haven't released yet, so there will be 2 of them up there eventually on my channel. When it comes to like numbers for pay, TMC has a video out on their company channel, and it says the average pay for a first-year driver is $65,000. Now keep that keyword in mind, average. So it means the middle. So you come here as a first-year driver, you could make $65,000 or something around that, but you could also make a little bit less. You could also make a little bit more. And I would say, based off of my experience, my first year with TMC, that number is accurate. I made a little bit more than $65,000. So I would say that's a pretty solid number to set your benchmark at, or to expect, if you run your truck decently, because I made more than that, like I said. But your pay with TMC can vary based off a multitude of factors. Now, take this to heart, because a lot of guys will hear what other guys are making, or they'll see some guy post his check stub up on a video or something like that. Just because somebody made something does not mean you're going to make that same thing at any given point in time. Now, I made a list that can let you guys know like all the various things that can impact how much you make when you're out here on the road. And I need to list them off because it's very important. You guys got to know all the stuff that goes into this. Your pay can vary based off of anything, such as like general freight rates, which at the time of this video being made, freight rates are low. So guys aren't making as much as they may have made, you know, last year or a couple years ago. Your specific pay percentage, so like I said, TMC goes from 24 all the way up to 34%. And that's hundreds of dollars of difference that you could make depending on how much your specific load that you're hauling pays. Where in the country you are when you're empty. So if you're in Florida, you're empty, versus being in the Midwest, you know, you could get dramatically different payments for the load that you're hauling. You know, Florida, in my experience, does not have a lot of high-paying loads coming out of Florida. I've had high-paying loads taking me into Florida, but coming out, it's like, you know, I can't really remember any like huge paydays that I've had coming out of Florida. So there's that, and how often you go home. Like if you are a driver that goes home every week, you can be making money like Monday through Wednesday, because they can send you anywhere. But around Wednesday, they have to get you back into the radius of where you live. So you need directional freight at that point in time. You can't get something that needs to go, you know, several states over in the opposite direction of where you live, just because it pays a lot of money if you want to go home still. But if you are staying out on the road, your pool of freight is almost limitless. So think about it like, I'm going home, so I have like 4 different options, versus I'm staying out on the road for the next 3 weeks. I've got 20 options because I can go anywhere. It's like that every day. Next, the time of year. I live in North Carolina, and during the winter time, the rates down south are not very good. Last year, I had to spend the majority of my winter going up north to Baltimore, Pennsylvania, moving things around, you know, going west, you know, into the Midwest to deliver things, because that's just where the money was. You know, things down south were all very low rates, and I had to have a discussion with my fleet manager. I'm like, where's the money at? And yeah, and what he was saying made sense, and I already knew it, but I was hoping he was going to tell me something different. But basically, nobody wants to drive a truck in the wintertime, so there's a huge influx of drivers down south in the winter. So there's a lot of drivers and not a lot of freight, and there's a lot of competition, and brokers and shippers know it, and you know, it's the market is more in their favor for moving stuff around. So if you need money, you got to go up north to get the cash. The last thing that really matters is how well you manage your 14-hour clock. So the more hours you have available on your clock, the more options you have for freight that you can pick up and deliver. You know, the closer you have to a full clock, the better every day. You know, whether you're trying to pick up freight to go deliver or you're trying to get back home, you want to have as much of your hours available to you as possible. So, you know, it's very important to know when you need to stop for the night, when you need to do a 2-hour break to get a split log, to get your duty time back. Things like that are very critical for making money out here and for getting from A to B. So to conclude everything, I want to say that the top contributors to my success out here was, number 1, managing my 14-hour clock. 2, having the proper mental outlook on everything, not letting anything frustrate you to the point where you start making stupid mistakes or do something silly that's gonna like end up coming back to bite you. You know, because you're gonna have good days out here, and you're also gonna have, you know, rough days where sometimes you might want to throw in the towel, but you have to keep your goal in mind of what you're out here trying to do and act accordingly. And also, don't be afraid or too prideful to ask for help. You know, a lot of guys get themselves in trouble out here because they're rushing because they want to hurry and get home, or they want to hurry and park for the night, and they end up, you know, crashing or not securing a load as well as they should, and they get a load shift, and then they have to call safety, and they might have to have like a truck or forklift come out there and readjust their load, rework it so it can be safe, and they have to resecure it again. That can cause you all kinds of problems because you were rushing. You know, that little bit of time you spent rushing, or that little bit of time that you gained, that you think you gained rushing, ends up costing you hours trying to fix it. And also, like I said, calling people, whether that's your fleet manager, safety department, logs, if you need assistance. Everybody at the company would much rather you call whoever it is that you need assistance from a dozen times versus you to go out there and wing it on your own and mess something up when you didn't have to do that. The risk is not worth the reward if it goes south. All right, guys. Well, I think I've covered dang near everything and then some. This video is going to be a long one, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it off right there. You know, my 2-year review of TMC, it was a lot. I tried to condense it as much as I could while also being as specific as I could be to help anybody who ends up watching this make a decision whether or not this is the right company for you to be with. So let me know down in the comment section down here if this video helped you out to make a decision whether you want to come here, or it lets you know you to stay far away from TMC. Either way, I'll catch you all in the next video. I appreciate everybody watching, commenting, subscribing, liking the videos as always, and I'll see you all further down the road. Here at Trucker out.